Hey, what's going on? Guardian CBL here, and Destiny Update 1.1.0 is out and in the wild, the one about the Curse of Osiris. First things first, let's talk a bit about some of the ability changes. In general, they've increased the damage dealt to bosses from all super abilities. This is going to make taking down some of those strike bosses a little bit easier when in your super. They've also adjusted the output of the recovery stat so that characters with the lowest recovery totals will start regenerating health slightly faster. This is of course in response to the outcry for hunters who have been basically shafted when it comes to the recovery stat since the game came out. Next up are some changes to grenades. We knew this was coming. They've reduced pulse rifle grenade damage slightly and toned down the intensity of the camera shake and controller rumble associated with each pulse. So pulse grenades aren't going to do quite as much damage as a super anymore, and they're not going to throw your screen all over the place when you're hit by them. We all knew that change was coming, nothing really too surprising there. They've also reduced the recharge rate of additional grenade charges beyond the first. Next, they've normalized the recharge rate of arc bolt and firebolt grenades to match other grenade archetypes. This is to bring them more in line with some of the other better performing grenades out there. Then, they've increased damage inflicted to combatants by flashbang grenade, magnetic grenades, suppressor grenades, incendiary grenades, fusion grenades, skip grenades, flux grenades, arc bolts, swarms, trip mines, storm grenades, firebolt grenades, axion bolts, and scatters. Basically, every grenade except pulse is getting a bit of a buff. We've always been arguing that we knew that there was going to be some toning for pulse nades, but we prefer if the other grenades were kind of brought up in power. So seeing a base increase of damage for all of those different grenade types, definitely a good decision. Alright, let's move on to some of the class-specific changes. First up for Titans, they've fixed an exploit allowing the Titan's Rally Barricade ability to generate infinite ammo for certain weapon types. We also knew this was coming. This is the Wardcliff Coil and the Merciless heavy fusion rifle glitch, where you could sit in front of a rally barricade, and if you're crouching fast enough and firing the gun, you could basically stack the ammo. You're no longer going to be able to do that. They've also fixed an exploit allowing players to chain Fist of Havoc abilities indefinitely. No more infinite supers. They've decreased the distance traveled in the air with the shoulder charge ability when it's executed without a target, and they've increased the number of solar hammers that can be thrown during the duration of the Hammer of Saul super ability. And when it comes to Sunbreakers, they've also extended the timer for the Hammer Strike's Weaken debuff by 1 second and corrected an issue that was causing the visual effects to not represent the duration properly. Next up, the Sunspot health regeneration buff now lingers for 3 seconds after moving through a sunspot, so you'll be able to get your health back a little bit longer. That's pretty much all of the big changes coming to Titan. Next up for Hunters, Arcstrider Dodge now briefly breaks tracking. So dodge on Arcstrider is now going to perform more like Shade Step did in Destiny 1, where it could kind of break the tracking of certain things like axion bolts. They've also, in a very big unexpected change for me, increased the base duration of Golden Gun. They've made it the same for both paths, the upper and the lower path. So if you're running the 6-shot path beforehand, you would have an incredibly small amount of time within your super to get those shots off. Now it's going to last as long as the normal Golden Gun. That is a huge change for the upper path. And it means the super is going to be a lot more forgiving in PvP from now on. Now your choice is really going to be between the mass damage you can put out with the upper path, the potential to kill more enemies, or the massive orb generation and single target damage you can put out with the lower path. It's a great change in my opinion. Next up, Shadow Shot now suppresses targets immediately on direct hit. And right now you can hear the voices of a million Night Stalkers crying out in unison saying thank you Bungie. That's something that needed to happen a long time ago. Moving on to Warlocks, explosive rounds no longer receive bonus damage from Empowering Rift, the Heat Rises perk no longer triggers on destructible objects, and they've updated the Devour perk description to correctly indicate that the ability is triggered on kills. Finally, the Nova Bomb created by the Cataclysm upgrade maintains its initial speed for longer before slowing down, so it's not going to take quite so long for that Nova Bomb to reach its target. Now, just really quickly for the Warlock changes, I have to say, I was really scared that they were going to nerf Devour, and I'm very happy to see that that's not going to be the case, that the only change they've made to Devour is basically they changed the description to more accurately display the fact that it activates on kill, not just on hit. Alright, moving on from the character class changes, let's get into some of the armor and weapon changes. First things first, Hunter leg armor with survivalist stat packages now grants recovery. There we go, they finally fixed Hunter boots. Definitely a change we've been waiting to see, and I'm glad that it came into effect sooner rather than later. Hunters have needed recovery forever. For the exotic armors, Mask of the Quiet One no longer grants energy when the wearer takes damage from friendly players. No more cheesing that one. Shield Bash now triggers the dreaded Visage perk on Mask of the Quiet One as well. Next up, for the ACD over 0 feedback fence, they've slightly increased the damage dealt by that perk's ability. Next, they've adjusted the grenade recharge granted by Starfire Protocol to compensate for the global decrease in the second grenade recharge rate. They've improved the ready and stow speed on the Peacekeepers. And they've added an additional perk to the Lucky Pants that loads a single bullet to the chamber of a stowed hand cannon whenever the player scores a precision hit with any weapon. That is a really major change to the Lucky Pants. Next, they've reworked the Karnstein armlets in 2 ways. On a melee hit, the armlets now provide heightened mobility and recovery and highlight low health targets, and scoring a melee kill immediately restores a significant amount of the wearer's health. If you remember before, the Karnsteins on melee hits would just give you a little bit of health back, and it was really kind of useful for stuff like Stormcaller. Being able to gap close while getting little ticks of health back allowed you to survive some situations, but it looks like they're going to be changing it up so that it gives you on hit at least a little bit more mobility and recovery so you can get around, maybe get your health back a little bit faster, and then if you get a kill, you're going to get a chunk of your health and shield back. Next up, let's talk about some of the weapon changes. Now in general, they've increased the base damage and reduced the precision modifier of precision auto rifles. So auto rifles are going to deal more base damage, but they're going to deal less precision damage. This is hopefully going to balance out the time to kill on some of the different classes, because right now it's 450 RPM auto rifles or bust, or at least it seems like when it comes to PvP. They've also slightly reduced the aim deflection of high caliber rounds on auto rifles and scout rifles, so you're going to have less of that bullet randomization when you're going up against Mida Multi-Tools and Uriel's Gift. Next, they've reduced the effectiveness of aim assist at higher ranges on scout rifles, and they've reduced the severity of recoil on Haka high impact auto rifles. Hand cannon accuracy recovery now scales with rate of fire, so this kind of sounds a little bit like Bloom. The faster firing hand cannons are probably going to be getting their initial accuracy back a little bit slower now, since you won't want to spam the trigger on those. I kind of hope it isn't the Bloom system from Destiny 1, but we're going to have to test things out and see. Next, they've slightly increased the rate of fire time between bursts on all Omelon sidearms. So those 3-round burst sidearms that had the super fast time to kill, they've given you a little bit more time in between bursts to kind of slow those things down so that they're not quite as devastating up close as they have been. They've also slightly increased impact damage on lightweight single-shot grenade launchers. Definitely a change that needed to happen. Those things in their state before today definitely weren't using, so we'll see how that affects them now. Next up are the exotic weapon changes, and really, there's only 3. First up, they've increased the Fighting Lion damage and changed the Thin the Herd perk to now grant bonus ammo rather than pulling ammo from the player's inventory, and I can hear Cammy Cake screaming to the sky right now. There we go, Guardians, that's pretty much it for all of the biggest changes that came in Destiny 2 Update 1.1.0. Curse of Osiris is live. What are you doing listening to me? Get out there, play it, see if it's going to bring something back that makes you really want to dive back into Destiny 2. I've taken a look at some of the things. I'm excited to get some of that new gear. I really want to get the Crimson Exotic Hand Cannon, so I'm going to get back onto gemming out there. But those were the patch notes. Be sure to let us know what you Guardians think of some of these changes. Some of the stuff like the weapon changes. I do like that auto rifles get better body shot damage and that they're tuning the precision damage a little bit. I like the changes to high caliber rounds. And I think the change to the recoil on high-impact Haka auto rifles is going to be good. Maybe those things won't be so low tier, so garbo anymore. But anyways, there's a lot of stuff in here. We can't wait to see you guys' thoughts on both these patch notes and, of course, the Curse of Osiris. But that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.